All right, hello and welcome everyone. Sorry for the 1 minute delay, which, considering my stream record, I think 1 minute delay isn't too bad. But how
It's been
is
far
everyone?
worse.
Oh, just so much worse. I mean, this is almost nothing, all things considered. But how you doing tonight, John?
Not bad. How about you?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. Drove out to Midwest. Midwest, that doesn't count. Middle Texas, right in the middle, just about. And, met with a client. Always glad to have more work. But man, something about sitting and driving where you expend almost no energy, but it just drains me for some reason.
Yeah, same thing.
But I mean, I'm glad I went. I'm glad that I have more work to do for these people. They're good people. I like working with them. So very, very thankful for the work, even if it does leave me a little worn out because I sat down all day, or however that works. And Thomas Potts is
says
saying,
I'm in the wrong spot.
"Is he? Oh, you are. You absolutely are. I wasn't even paying attention. Whoop. Thank you, Thomas."
What else? What else is new?
He's also saying that I misspelled the title of this stream. Are you sure? By any other name. By any other name. It looks right to me. What am I missing here, Thomas?
No, I think he was correcting a spelling in one of the comments he put in the chat.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was willing to believe and accept that I had misspelled something because that is 100% in line with what we know of my personality. As 47 Yorktown was pointing out, it was a great virtual pub last night. Nira Carice is awesome. Thank you.
Indeed,
Thank you, 47. And if anyone missed that, I recommend going back and watching it. I think it was a real interesting one. We were debating whether or not Colonel Major Brigadier General Nira Carice was a extremist or not, basically. And we didn't come to a resolution, but I thought it was a good discussion anyway. Not every discussion has to end with everyone agreeing. So I thought it was fun, even though I did end up getting plenty of impeachment articles because I was on one last night. I could not say something right to save my life.
It's true.
Up to including my stance on Kira Nerys, some might say.
Oh, and by the way, Thomas has a very important question for you about this stream.
What's that?
The one at the beginning with the spell checking in it.
Okay,
you see his question there?
Let's see. I see that. Greetings from John. Bradley Briggs, how you doing? Zup y'all, right back at you. It deleted one of John's comments. We blame Matthew. Fair. Our Thomas Potts, repeat and spell fix it. Oh, I see what you're saying about fixing his first comment spelling. By any other name, are the Kelvins in this episode? I'm not getting the reference. That's not one of the houses in Shakespeare.
No, it's not. We were all wondering if you would get the reference or not.
I'm not. I'm not at all. Is this a Babylon 5 reference?
It is not. It is an original series reference.
The Kelvin. Oh, is that a TOS episode name?
Yes, it is.
There we go.
An alien race known as the Kelvins.
Okay.
Turn people into little crystals.
I see. Yes, I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of episode names. Now, I lucked out. The one time Anti-Trekker played like this, it was like this quiz game for Star Trek stuff. I think he just happened to have a like one of those, you pull out the quiz sheets things, or the card, like a board game. That's the one I'm looking for, a board game. And he was reading questions off of it. And I think, and we're going over TNG stuff, and I just so happened to be watching TNG right at that time. And so he'd be like, what episode was this? I'm like, well, I literally just watched this episode, so I know the answer. So it made me look really, really smart, but I'm not. I don't have that ability.
guess we'll all be revoking your nerd card once again for that.
Oh yes, absolutely. I can remember general details like, oh yes, there was an episode in Voyager where this thing happened, but then I'll get the names of the people who are in it wrong. I will get the name of the episode wrong. I'll get the season wrong, and I only get the name of the ship right by default because it's the only named Star Trek ship for most of Voyager.
So you're one of those people who can describe everything about the episode except the actual answer.
Yes.
You'd fit in well on Question of Trek.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd be like, oh yeah, remember that episode? Harry Kim, he was like interfaced with this unit and a ship and like became the pilot, but he was somehow integrated into it, and he flew into like a supernova or something. So you'd be like, you mean Tom Paris, and he flew into a particle fountain, and like, oh yeah, all that. But I definitely get, like, I remember the details, just not the details. How's that for a sentence? Right. I find no logical inconsistencies with my previous statement. Oh gosh, Thomas is saying I should be Continuum's teammate next time. Only if he wants to lose just thoroughly. Then yeah, I'm up for being trounced on my Star Trek knowledge.
But Jeff has a good point. I'm sure one episode you'll never forget the name of is your favorite code of honor.
Darn it. And see, I won't. I'll never forget that episode. I won't. It's so, like, I crack up still about that because that has such a Worf sounding episode name. And like, oh yeah, that's gotta be Worf centric. That's one of the ones where his brother shows up and wants to commit suicide, something like that. Surely Galron is involved, I'm sure. And no, it is like one of the least Worf focused episodes throughout the series.
And what's that rare gem that's a Tasha Yar episode?
Yes, that's who it is. Yes, Tasha, good old Tasha, my second least favorite TNG character, trumped only, of course, by B'Elanna Troi. Oh gosh. Well, guys, how about we get this party going? And I guess to do that, maybe it would be beneficial if I actually dropped the link just to a SciTube in here. They really need a better name. I cannot figure out how you're supposed to pronounce that.
Well, you can't figure out how to pronounce most things, so that's not really a surprise.
True. Very true. Like on a good day, I get most of the pronunciation right. But I gotta be on point for that to come about. And even then, I'm gonna get a lot of things wrong. But here's how it works, guys. If you are watching this right now, you can go to the link that I just dropped and pinned over in YouTube. And for once, by the way, it seems like YouTube is working just fine, no issues. But as everyone knows, for some reason, YouTube hates me on Tuesday nights. So if that happens tonight, just jump over to Twitch, where Twitch never has any problems doing the stream. No idea why, but here we go. If YouTube goes to crap, join us over on Twitch. And Bradley's saying that I'm extremely camera shy, but I hide it very well, doesn't he? No, okay, so I said we're gonna get started, but here I am gonna go on one more tangent. No, you know what? I'll save this story for the listening to the theme song. But here, like I was saying, here's the way it works. I dropped the link to SciTube in the chat below, and I pinned it in YouTube. Come join us, and you can watch this live with us right now. Now, if you're watching this in the future, you can't go to my screening room because that won't work anymore. Like, you can go there, you just won't be able to watch the video. It's going to be a black screen. This only works during this stream, and it only works because we can all sync up our watch times together. So if you're watching this in the future, you either need to buy your own DVD, which they're out there, just like the truth, it's out there and you can get it, or you can sign up for a 100% free account with Peacock TV, which I recommend. They have some good shows on there, least of which, of course, being SeaQuest. All 3 seasons. You can watch it at your leisure. They do advertisements, but honestly, that's not too much of an issue, especially to have like an ad blocker. Just gonna throw that out there. So it's a worthwhile thing. Otherwise, if you can't watch it now and you don't want to watch it later, we will be including the clips down this away. So every 5 seconds, I grab a clip, throw it up on the screen, just so you have a point of reference for what we're talking to. And John and I will, give our comments and thoughts as we're watching the show. And of course, John, as always, just talk right over me. If I won't shut up, just jump in and say something and I will shut up. I almost promise. Mostly promise.
Oh, almost.
Almost, mostly, kind of promise. So hopefully you have joined us. There we go. Go for it, John.
I say, hopefully you won't get a professor in any more trouble this time, like you were doing last night.
I was, because after the stream, we got going off on some other tangent about Kira in Discord. Which, I mean, it was very polite. We're all very polite, but it was another argument of sorts over on Discord. So I am going to get this started. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to come join us in the screening room. If not, by all means, guys, please join us over there. We'll give a 5 count, and then I'm going to hit the play button and get this episode going. Special episode. Rick Moranis isn't in it, but he certainly could have been in this episode of SeaQuest DSV. So here we go, guys. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and hitting the play button now. And hopefully the clips get going here in just a second. Clips are lagging. Let me try and fix that.
Yeah, we got apparently running for his life.
There you go. That's Sebastian time.
But what is it?
Which, knowing what we know, I don't know what his end game here was. Like, if I am inside a colony on the bottom of the ocean, I think I'm going for an airlock. Like, that seems to me like the best course of action.
I think like he's just trying to get inside right now. I don't know if he has a plan other than that.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. These are some pretty flimsy doors, not exactly barricaded.
Oh yeah, the radio room. I guess that'd be a helpful place to get to.
I guess, does it count? Like, he's calling Mayday, Mayday, but is it really a Mayday situation if you're not in a plane? Like, what's the rules for Mayday?
I can't say that I know.
I can definitely say that I don't know.
And by the way, Jeff is clarifying that when he said getting in trouble, he was talking about the stream at the end. I mean, the topic at the end of the stream.
Oh.
The whole theme of the map, the distances.
Yes, I also tried to get in trouble with that. Which, that wasn't too much trouble. That wasn't any trouble. I think we all agreed with you on that one. And it was an interesting follow-up topic, which...
Yeah.
It would be nice if at some point they had an official map and it was kind of put into the writer's Bible where these are the distances to and from places. But that's almost too limiting for a episode a week kind of show where each episode is largely independent of the next. And Piccolo is trying to get Darwin to eat. And Piccolo, he's saying, look, it took my mom 2 months to for my mom to get me to eat something. His first something or other, like carrots or who knows. He's like, and the thing that got me was the plane flying into the hangar trick. So I can do this with the dolphin. He's like, come on, this is such a yummy fish. It's such a scrumptious fish. It's delicious. And he gives it a little lick. And then he's like, oh, it's pure ambrosia. Oh. And Bridger's like, maybe we should just call your mom. Because this is his best guess. He's like, there's no female dolphins down here, so this is the best thing I got for getting him to eat. Because he hasn't eaten apparently in 2 days. And he's not even talking. He's gone completely silent. Which you would think would be the best episode of SeaQuest.
In fact, it's a very, disastrous occurrence. Something must be seriously wrong.
It's all part of Darwin's long game. This is all part of Darwin saving the day. You'll see. I guarantee that this was all set up just so Darwin could save the day.
Oh, was there any doubt?
And Brainy is saying that Mayday is a distress call that is used to signal a life-threatening emergency, usually on a ship or plane, but it can be used in a variety of other situations. All right, there we go. So it is even beyond a plane. Fair enough. And Dagwood, ever helpful. He's saying maybe we should bring Dr. Smith in here. She knows lots of things, even though she's not a veterinarian. What's a veterinarian? But she even knew when you weren't at that seminar, even though that's what you told everyone. And Bridger's like, oh? And Piglet's like, thanks, Dagwood. You're welcome. So they're going to do a course change to Calamar Colony. Little on the nose with that, as we'll see in a little bit. So the being camera shy and how I'm very much not at all camera shy. When I was baptized, it was I was like 6 or 7, and the pastor, he's holding this microphone. We're outdoors. We got like this horse trough because that's all we had. And I ripped the microphone out of his hands and I just start going off on my testimony, like zero cares, little 6-year-old Matt or 7-year-old Matt, however old I was. But I have always not been at all concerned with public speaking, which is weird because I'm actually quite introverted. I just don't care about public speaking. Robert wants to know, which is my favorite character, Darwin the Dolphin or Jar Jar Binks? Darwin wins. Darwin wins out over Jar Jar.
And Belana Troy is talking about how she likes to talk to her plants, how it supposedly helps them grow and stuff like that.
It's therapeutic for me if it's not for, at least if it's not for them. And they're trying to get her to come see Darwin if she'll come do a reading on him. And she's like, oh, I'm sure it's just a bad idea, or bad day. They're like, no, we think it's something more. She's like, okay, whatever. I'll come read your dolphin. And that is a huge station. This is a horticultural station where they grow, I'm sure, many of the fine foods that Krieg was complaining about last season.
Indeed.
But when you keep in mind
tomatoes and all that.
Yes, perfect, non-bruised, genetically engineered fruits. I mean, in that shot, you saw how big or how little SeaQuest was next to it, and SeaQuest is not a little ship; it is a massive ship.
Yeah, this is a big place. So big that it actually looks like it has a real sky.
Indeed. Incredible. That no, Thomas. Horticultural. Horticultural, not that P word. and who's Ortiz? He's talking about how when he was a kid, his uncle owned a funeral parlor, basically. And they're like, that you must have had like a lot of fun games you played there. He goes, well, yeah, freeze tag, but the customers always won. And Ford tells Ortiz to head out and try and see if he can't dig up any residents, which I feel like was a joke on Ford's part.
Yeah.
And we keep getting this creepy something lurking behind the bushes, watching them. And a pile of sand. What could it possibly be? Springtime, I will try to keep it G-rated. I'm sorry, I just have zero control over this mouth of mine sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes he can be quite uncouth.
Indeed. In fact, I was telling someone today how, it was at the client's place, and some girl was trying to do programming stuff, and one of the guys was teasing her like, oh yeah, she really swears up a storm when it doesn't work. She gets real frustrated. I'm like, hey, I can swear like a 17th century Puritan when I get into a coding problem. So I know all about getting upset during programming. And look out, something's gonna grab you, red shirt. He's literally a red shirt. Poor guy.
It's hate when a vine grabs your foot, though.
I do.
Annoying.
Stu
we got two
Ivy.
people here with you got two people here with Ortiz that we've never seen before. I'm sure they'll be just fine.
Yeah, whatever happened to Shran? Shran?
Shan, yeah, he disappeared after the end of the first season.
Oh, I guess he didn't make the move. I thought we saw him in the second season, but clearly not.
I don't think so.
So do you think this was the forest just outside the studio lot or something? Or not even forest, but like...
Good. Yeah, probably just some public gardens or something, is what I would guess.
Maybe a couple random props thrown in there.
Yeah, probably. Something like that.
But like that tree that had the red stuff growing on that. That looked just a little proppy. It's gotta be really hard to do those clips on the back of your back.
I wonder.
And Brody, he's feeling outnumbered for some reason. It's completely empty. There's no one around, but he feels outnumbered by the plants of all things. You're just giving him a creepy vibe. And Bridger has no comment. He's like, okay, we're moving along. Which I feel like that's the right response. If one of your people is being way too jumpy, you ignore it, move along. This episode is really doubling down on the fake jump scares.
Mm-hmm.
I think that plant may have been a offshoot of the one from Star Trek, the one where you got a face full of pollen and became a hippie.
Yeah, it looks kind of familiar.
Oh, but that lady, she grabs a random plant and puts it into her pocket.
Oh, it's just a flower. I'm sure it's harmless.
Or at least mostly harmless.
Most sure.
So everyone's reconvening and nothing's adding up. Someone must have sent the Mayday, but there's no one here. It's an empty, giant environment, which, I mean, I call a little bit of shenanigans on. They're talking about how they've been really thorough, but the SeaQuest is so large that you have to take a tram from the front to the back. And this place looked to be easily like 3 times the length of SeaQuest, and who knows how many times the depth and height of SeaQuest. So, I mean, this is a huge station. They're not going to cover it in a few minutes here, or single afternoon. And yes, Thomas, I know about the hippies in TOS, which you kind of had several hippie episodes in TOS. You had Way to Eden. What do you call the Adam and Eve episode? They're more innocent and less hippies.
Yeah, we're going to think of that one as a hippie episode. Well, supposedly there were 200 people in the colony. Yeah, they can't figure out where they all went.
And Ford's saying they were extremely thorough. The only way they couldn't have found them at this point is if they were specifically hiding and didn't want to be found. Which that wouldn't make sense since they deliberately sent out a Mayday message. Like, people tend to not send out Maydays and then hide from the people rescuing them.
Indeed.
And this week, they're able to do personal communications right from their quarters again. Which, to be fair, it's only a message. So I guess it could be that for live communications, you have to use the public channel. And for everything else, you might be in like kind of a letter queue situation where you can send pre-recorded messages back and forth that the UEO can potentially, I'm assuming, check for content.
Makes sense.
Thomas Potts, Adam and Eve, yeah, the orange people planet.
Yes, also known as the apple.
Hence my thought of Adam and Eve. See, there's a connection. It may be tenuous, but it's up there. So when Ford came back to SeaQuest, he left our 2 red shirts behind. And this guy's calling out for his buddy Cliff. Cliff, it's not funny. Give it up. Come on. 'Cause apparently he stepped just into the bushes. I'm assuming maybe to take care of some personal business. And now he's gone. But we have that strange pile of sand in its place.
Man, it's pretty time I was asking what year is it in the show. I think it's about 2019 at this point.
Yeah. And poor red shirt number 2. Y'all guys didn't see it in the clips, but vines lashed out, grabbed his ankles, grabbed his neck, and we faded to black. And Belana Troy is trying to get Darwin to tell her something, anything, some sort of hint. And Lucas, he kind of wants to just give up a little bit. He's exhausted, and he's grumpy, maybe come at this from a fresh angle. But Piccolo's saying, look, it took me years to start to change my life around. Which, if you say so, Piccolo, I remember you from episode 1 of this season. I think you've really started to change your life around since you met Lucas.
And Darwin.
And Darwin, yes. But all Belana Troy can get out of Darwin is he keeps saying 5600 Kelvin. And Bridger points out, well, that's the color of daylight, 5600 Kelvin. well, when was the last time Darwin was up on the surface? And they think about it and go, well, I guess about 2 weeks ago. And Lewis makes the connection. Well, that's it. That's why Darwin's so grumpy. He's just not getting enough artificial sunlight at the right color frequency.
And Thomas makes a good point. It turns out that Kelvin is in this episode.
Oh, true, Thomas. And they say, well, maybe we can let Darwin go up to the surface. Say, no, it's no good. It's the sun's gone down. It's nighttime. And Bridger says, well, maybe I can just change the color of the lights, because these are, very fancy lights, and they can just color change it. Which, congratulations to SeaQuest for getting lights that you can set the color temperature to on the fly.
Well, Darwin seems to like it anyway.
He does. Here we are, stage 2 of his plan. Stage 1, act sad. Stage 2, get them to change the light colors. Darwin's setting it all up for them to be saved. Springtime, this show is real fun. It does get weird sometimes, like the ghost ship episode or this episode. But all in all, it very much has been the TNG Under the Sea TV show. So Ortiz is showing up saying that something's weird going on aboard the SeaQuest, that the O2 levels are too high. It would make sense that they had dropped off a bunch of crew members, but they haven't. And Bridger's saying, well, maybe the sensors are off. Go inspect it. And the Ford gets called to the bridge, and he's upset because he wanted his cake. So Bridger reaches over and takes off a big bite of his fudge cake. And Robert Rose Jr. is saying that Gohan wanted Piccolo, or Gohan changed Piccolo a whole lot, along with Goku later on also. Very true. Gohan is the Darwin of DBZ. Thomas, I respectfully disagree. Ghost Ship was definitely better than Sub Rosa. And Ford is he's concerned they're starting to lose communications with the surface. So he's sending Brody in with 10 soldiers, or Mako troops, whatever you want to call them. And they're going in hot this time. He's like, look, you ask questions once, but if they don't respond, just shoot. Because something weird is going on. And just when
scream.
Yes. Just when Ford is worried that they're going to get more questions, he hears, oh, what's her name screaming? The Henderson, yes.
That's what a laser we get to use on the door there.
And she, even though there's a giant plant attacking her in her room, she still remembers to grab her stuffed animal, her lucky stuffed rabbit. But unfortunately, the seaman is not so lucky. He saved her life, and he is instead caught by the vines. I swear you can hear "Feed Me, Seymour" being yelled throughout this scene. And they do nothing to try to save him. They're just like, well, let's watch. And so the seaman
just disintegrates right in front of him.
Yeah, now he's just a pile of sand. So clearly somehow these plants are able to eat humans. Thomas Potts, sea, space, or not space, actually, man. It is technically one word, isn't it? A sailor.
I think it is.
A sailor. But at this point, the planet is just so rapidly growing, it's chasing them throughout the section of the ship. And they call for this one to be blocked off, which actually makes a lot of sense. A sub absolutely would have areas that you could lock down to prevent leaking.
Or killer planets from taking over the ship.
Or, they're multi-purposed.
Yeah. I want to welcome Mr. Miles.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Miles? Why is Rasputin streaming with Matthew? Well, because I'm a Kurogan. Who else would I have? I mean, he is immortal. Which, even though this section has been locked down, it looks like the vents are still accessible, perhaps? The plant's certainly going for them. So Ford calls up Jim, apparently is his first name. And they say, get back as quick as you can to the ship. The plants are the ones doing it. Thomas, I'm pretty sure there's one of those like urban myth legend things where people thoroughly believe that Rasputin is still alive, that he's immortal. That he was some sorcerer type person of Russia, and will someday make his return.
I could really see these things in an episode of the original series.
Oh, Mr. Miles, this is John DiMarco. Every Tuesday, we do our SeaQuest reviews.
Oh, yeah. Hi, by the way.
Yeah, he's saying, who is the guest? In all seriousness, I don't drop in enough. And he says, Thomas points out his middle name is The Baptist.
I've been called worse. That's for sure. Like Rasputin, for example.
Like Rasputin. So the plant has actually somehow gotten out of the ship. Like you see it covering the SeaQuest there, and it's made its way into the hydraulics such that it has forced the ballast wide open, and the ship is actively sinking. Or I guess it was already sunk since it's a submarine, but it's even more sinking.
No need to apologize, Mr. Miles. We enjoy harassing Matthew at every opportunity.
It's very true. It's all in good fun. And Professor is saying that this is more like a Lost in Space episode mixed with SeaQuest. I can see that. One of the classic episodes. And this is not at all how they would fix a leak like that. But, I mean, it's neat that they're trying to find some way to fix a leak in a sub. Like, what would you possibly do? And poor Jim. Jim's on his own now. Until they can somehow reverse ballast, they're stuck on the seabed.
And he's surrounded by nothing but plants and red shirts.
Those poor castaways. So they're going to the house again. The house with plain wood doors that the Mayday guy died in. For some reason, they're thinking that this is really, really a defensible spot.
Well,
Now,
I suppose
personally,
it's better than the middle of a field.
Yes. Personally, I would be finding a lighter at this point. Plants tend to not like being burned, I've been told.
Most things don't.
Which, I mean, the lasers were a good start. Lasers would cause some burning. But don't worry, everyone. They found the kitchen. The safest spot in the world.
Absolutely.
Because Jim immediately stands down. Anybody hungry? Yeah, yes, the plants. The plants right outside that you were running from. Like, are literally right outside the door. They're very hungry. Hey, Josh Street, how you doing? Saying, we demand the adventures of Matthew, Taserface, Shortshanks, which, thank you for reminding me of that. But anyone who isn't on Discord, Anti-Trekker, his spinal tap procedure went A-okay today. It was about a 3-hour procedure from 9 to noonish Central Time. And last I heard, he was doing quite well. Just has to wait 24 hours for the liquid levels to refill so that he can stand up without potentially giving himself brain damage.
Meanwhile, Darwin seems to be feeling much better. He's talking again. So things are looking up.
Hey, we have Taserface in the chat. Wow, how are you doing, Taserface? I feel like I'm having an identity crisis. I guess Taserface is kind of a common name out there. I don't have a monopoly on the name.
Yes, there's a common label in Karoga.
Yes. So Lewis is trying to figure out what's going on with the station, Calamari Station, which I feel is really on the nose considering how the plants attack people with tentacles, basically. But the whole point of the Calamari Horticultural Station is they wanted to genetically modify the plants so that they could survive in inhospitable environments, you know, down here on the bottom of the seabed. But apparently they went too far with their creations and somehow created a carnivorous plant.
Didn't you guys learn anything from the eugenics wars back in the 90s? I mean, surely you lived through that.
Yeah, or with John Hammond from Jurassic Park. Don't you know that nature finds a way? Oh, that's the Tony Piccolo. Or earlier, Darwin was saying, can Tony come swimming with us? And I thought he was talking about Taurus, but no. Piccolo's name is Tony. I keep forgetting because no one calls him Tony. And here they go. Everyone's so relaxed in the kitchen. And finally, the vines come bursting through the doors like a velociraptor. And he's like, oh, you know what? The kitchen, not defensible.
Yeah, I was also getting Jurassic Park vibes when they went into the kitchen.
So they go, you know what? You know what could be more defensible than the kitchen? Why not the seed vault where all these carnivorous plants were first formed?
Makes sense.
And Thomas Potts is saying that science causes nothing but trouble. You know, there was a real famous horror writer who had some very unsavory ideas about people in general, very much kind of racist, but H.P. Lovecraft. He very much had the belief that science was nothing but trouble.
Well, if he was racist, it's no wonder that Matthew likes him so much. You know his feelings on that.
I mean, Code of Honor was my favorite episode. I don't
See?
I think that just proves how racist someone is. So Piccolo tries to spray Roundup all over the Seymour's plant, but it does nothing. It doesn't even care. And just then, the vines rip the duct cover off, and now the plant's going to crawl through the air ducts, which, if only you were watching this with us right now, if you're not in the CY SciTube studio, you guys are missing out, because this plant is just screaming and howling every time it is on screen. It is not at all annoying after the first few times.
Nope, not at all.
But the plant is coming straight for the moon bay. Darwin is in trouble. They've got to get him out of there. But it's too late. Here comes the plant.
But as we've already established, it's all part of Darwin's plan.
It literally is. Because no sooner does the plant come into Darwin's moon bay area than it dies. What on earth could this possibly be? Could it be that it had a delay reaction to the Roundup? Mr. Miles is saying, yes, Thomas, turns on the air conditioner. Science is nothing but trouble.
It's the daylight.
It's the daylight. This was it. And here we see, this is why Darwin put it all together. He knew, because remember, Darwin can see the future. He knew that they would go here, and the only thing that could defeat the plants would be daylight, because they never seen true daylight. They all grew up in this artificial environment. So Darwin pretended to be sick. He pretended to be sad. And he did it for 2 weeks, to the point that he stopped eating for 2 whole days, just so that they would increase the brightness level to be daylight, so that the plants would die, so that Darwin would save SeaQuest once again. But the plant knew. It knew they were going to increase the lights all across SeaQuest. And so it took out the power systems, so they can't bring up the lights to the 5600 Kelvin color. Because obviously, the color of light is directly correlated to the energy usage. And if you increase it to 5600 Kelvin, that is a massive energy drain.
Logical.
If you can't tell, this is my sarcasm. That's not how light colors work. At least not to the extent they are presenting it. But we'll grant them this. The idea that you could have a true daylight colored lamp was somewhat unique at the time. So Bridger's trying to think of some way that maybe they could blow the valve so that SeaQuest could rise to the surface. And Ford says it's not going to work. The specs on those valves, or the torque strength, would require 6 guys working together to lift that valve up so that it would open up. And as it is, there might be enough space for 1 guy to get through. So we're screwed.
Mr. We have a request from the chat for you to say something, Matthew.
Yeah, I see. Professor Miles wants me to say that.
Professor Miles.
Did I say Professor Miles?
Professor Miles? Who's Professor Miles?
Mr. Miles. Mr. Miles wants me to say that. I apologize. Mr. Miles wants me to say that. So there you go. I said that in several different inflections. I'll give you one more. That. There you go. Yeah, Robert, if people would just talk to Piccolo, a lot of problems could get solved. He could just do the solar flare and everything would be fine. So with SeaQuest unable to increase its lights, it is now Jim's job to turn the lights up aboard the horticultural station. And for some reason, even though he had just run into a room filled with these plants, they're doing nothing. They're just chilling. I guess they're not too hungry right now.
Yeah, maybe they just had lunch.
I mean, they did have like 250 colonists.
Yep.
Farmers? Do they count as colonists? I mean, people.
I think they were referred to as colonists, yeah. Oh, he missed one.
As it roars like a raincore, basically. Oh, but thankfully Jim's shoe came off. He's safe, everyone. Jim is safe. You know, until he jumps through the glass, that would kind of rip him to shreds.
No, he's a tough guy. He can handle it.
Just walks it off. But he's flipping buttons, or pushing buttons, flipping switches. You can't flip a button. That's just weird. But thankfully, they have an environmental control panel where you just slide the sliders up and it increases the temperature of the lights. And that is exactly what the ship needed, or station needed. The horticultural station. As all the vines die and they had blocked off the escape hatch. No way to get out, but now the vines are dead. And the sunlight beams through like Moya in that one episode of Farscape. But here they found their solution. One guy able to get through. Strength of 6 men. It's Dagwood the Dagger. So in order to pull these these levers, there's some safety pins. You got to pull them out. But Dagwood, he just can't do it. Even though he has the strength of 10 regular men, he just can't pull the lever out, or safety pin. Which I guess it's just under way too much pressure right now.
So he's going to try to lift the levers anyway, even though he can't take the pin out.
Which, I'll grant him this, you know. The sheer strength of a pin might be a lot lower than the strength required to actually pull it out when it's jammed in there and stuck. So why not? Why not? He forces it up and shears through the pin, and half the ballasts are now open, closing up, filling with air so it can rise.
Hello, Daniel. By the way, this episode is by any other name. The one with the killer plants.
And Mr. Miles is saying that Professor Brainy Specs is the classic example of the inverse ratio between the size of the mouth and the size of the brain. It's true, Professor Brainy Specs, he values his words like gold. Which is a very cool way of saying, if I, brag a little bit, of saying that he's a man of few words, and yet they are highly valued.
No, Matthew, on the other hand.
Tip, tap, 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 tap. Just nonstop. Most people get 2 cents for their thoughts. I get a hay penny. I mean, there's just so many of them. And frankly, that's being gracious. But now that they're on the surface, they open all the windows aboard SeaQuest, and it kills off the plants. Yes, sunlight, plants' most deadliest enemy. Mr. Miles, or Professor Miles, you know, if I want to keep making mistakes, Mr. Miles, I can answer that question. I missed the quote. I 1000% missed the quote.
And I have to say that I'm impressed. It looks like Brody brought all his red shirts back alive, except for those original 2 that got lost.
I guess hiding in the kitchen really was the right call.
Yeah. Who would have thought?
And Brody brings back a flower for Dagwood, and he tries to give it, but Dagwood, he dodges it. And he gives Brody a slap on the shoulder. Good work. And so Brody, he goes, good work, and slaps him back on the shoulder as he tries to walk away. Oh, it was a Doctor Who quote? Which Doctor? I've really only seen everything from Eccleston on. And even if it was something in Eccleston, or Eccleston or Beyond's era, I'm very likely to have missed it. So Piccolo brings everyone around for dinner, special thing, and he opens it up, and it's asparagus with butter. And, you know, B'Elanna Troy's like, I wouldn't have imagined serving asparagus at a victory celebration. And Piccolo says, well, you weren't raised like my family. I'm talking about revenge. Sweet revenge. He takes a giant chunk out of asparagus and goes, with butter. And it's so funny, you watch his face, and it's clear that in real life, the actor who plays Piccolo was not enjoying the taste of the asparagus. And Ted Raimi is showing how the idea of using tones to communicate with sea life is actually something they really did. And here you see that they're actually training some killer whales to do tricks based on the tones being sent out by that device. And there we go. Tom Baker is who made the quote for Mr. Miles, and Professor Brainy Specs responded with a quote from the third Doctor, John Pertwee. Well, fun stuff. John, what did you think of tonight's episode?
Well, I thought it was total cheese, but it was a very enjoyable cheese.
I think I enjoyed it more this second watch through. That may have just been because it was fun to hang out with you and, you know, give it some good ribs here and there. They're orcas, my mistake. Sorry, Thomas. You'd think I'd know since I've been playing Echo, or maybe if I actually played Echo, I would know, instead of just stalling on that. Wow, dang it, oh yeah, so it was more fun watching it the second time. Definitely, like, when I'm thinking of great SeaQuest episodes, I don't think this is going to be one where I'm like, oh yeah, I can't wait to watch the one that's basically Little Shop of Horrors minus Rick Moranis. But I mean, it's still better than an episode of Discovery.
Yeah.
It's still an episode where I get to the end, I'm like, where I go, well, that's not going to be one I watch all the time, but I didn't actively hate it. It was more that there were things that I found a nitpick in it than things that I found to dislike in it.
Now we have another reminder to do the schedule Thomas made for you.
Yes, Thomas did make a schedule for me, a schedule, as you might say,
Excellent schedule.
It's an amazing schedule, but it slips my mind a little bit. I think on Wednesday I'm supposed to ignore everyone, do a snub. I think was what was called for. And then Thursday was a snub, was it? No, Thursday was a church night. Friday was movie night, which I think I'll snub instead. So no, I do tell a lie. It's like every night was Babylon 5 until I get caught up kind of with SeaQuest's progression.
Well, at least you're a little bit closer that time.
A little bit closer, yes.
Let's do a video game on Wednesday and Babylon 5 on Thursday.
That's what it was. But no, unfortunately, you know what? I will try, and sometime this week, do a video game stream. I have been very distracted with this project over here. So this is, I've been working on getting a bunch of sensors hooked up for a biking project of mine. And I'm actually really close. So I'm really excited about getting that done. So I have been doing a little extra ignoring in the evenings because that's the time I get a program on this. And Daniel's Hot Topic is saying that we will love Picard season 2. In all honesty, I don't know. I'm a cynic at this point, Daniel. I am an old grumpy cynic. Not quite Michael old or grumpy yet, or cynic, but I'm getting close. In terms of grumpy and cynic, not in terms of age. No one can catch up with him. Not even Methuselah. But no, when I see them advertising, Q coming back, I go, you know what? He's going to be like referenced in half an episode, and maybe do a 5-second cameo, and that's going to be it. And they're trying to get us all excited about Q, time travel, fixing mistakes, and I don't think any of it's going to happen. I just don't. The best I see happening in terms of fixing mistakes in time travel is maybe they do something with Picard's work with the Romulans. But see, that's me going, what would make logical sense for Picard? Picard has this huge regret about the Romulans. And what they're going to do is, what's drama? What makes no sense but is good drama? I don't know. Let's find out Picard was sad that he never confessed his love to Riker. And we have this huge plot where Picard, he works up his courage to confess to all the men he loved. And that's what I see them like that's the level of quality I expect from Picard. It makes no sense, has nothing to do with anything, but I don't know. That's what I expect at this point.
Professor says, Q and Picard time travel and erase Discovery. Don't get my hopes up like that.
I don't see it happening. It really made you physical, closing your fist angry, Mr. Miles. That's okay. Like, it annoyed me. I had high hopes for it, and then the Impossible Box episode happened, and they had made some gaffes before then, but starting with the Impossible Box, that's when nothing made sense anymore. There's no point. Like, the show was over, and they still had 4 more episodes to get through. Professor was being facetious. Sometimes I miss things, subtleties, nuances, names.
Things directly in your face.
Things directly in my face. Matthew, listen to what you're saying. B'Elanna Troy.
Troy.
I don't get it. What's the problem? Oh, the Mass Effect ripoff? Yeah, that was a thing they did in Picard.
But I think my least favorite thing they did in Picard is how they treated Seven's character. Well, there's lots of
Yeah.
other things too.
You know, they had so many opportunities there that they literally just said screw it. Like Seven becoming Queen of the Borg was such a massive moment that they could have done a whole season's worth of after effects from that choice Seven made, where she had, like, all of Voyager, she wanted to be part of the collective again. And it was only at the very end she started to embrace her humanity, which, you know, missed moment there. I think that they should have done more of a relationship with Harry Kim instead of doing a random thing with Chakotay. But, you know, whatever. But she finally embraces her humanity, and then she returns to the collective. This is a major thing for her. It's like, I'm returning to what I always secretly, kind of in my heart of hearts, wanted to be in. And will I be able to give that up once I have that back? And then immediately, all the Borg get killed, because why not? And then she just is like, oh no, everything's fine. You know, no lasting psychological damage, no trauma, no wrestling. Can I give it up, or am I gonna keep it? Just, I'm done with this. We're done with this plot line. Let's move on.
I think you could have completely eliminated the Borg from season 1 of Picard, and wouldn't have made a huge difference to the plot. Even when you get to the end, the Borg cube shows up. You think there's going to be some epic battle, and it just, crashes.
Yeah, very true.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, they literally could have been anywhere. They could have been on the Daystrom Institute. They could have been on Mars, and you would have had all the same stuff. I guess the only thing you would have missed was Hughes. Or Hugh, not Hughes. Excuse me. There's only one of him.
Yes.
I've been hanging out with LDG too much. One of them, Hugh. Which I did really enjoy that specific scene where Picard talked with Hugh and kind of had this moment of acceptance of his own past with the Borg.
There was some good stuff like that. But, I liked the scene where Seven and Picard were talking about their experiences in the collective. You almost get a kind of a hopeful vibe from that scene. They play the Voyager theme, and then she beams back down to the planet and kills everybody. But they completely ruined the moment.
Yeah, which it made sense when, like, the first season she was in, she came across one of the species 8472, 8642, the fluidic space species. And there's a Hirogen on board. It's like one of the first episodes with the Hirogen. One of the first 2 or 3, maybe. And Seven just wants to kill the fluidic space creatures, whatever it is. Species 84, blah, 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 blah. And Janeway's like, no, we're going to save it. We're going to send it back to fluidic space. This is a chance to, be at peace. 8472, thank you, Mr. Miles. And then at the end, the Hirogens are surrounding Voyager, and Seven beams off 8472 onto one of the Hirogen ships to stop the attack. That's who Seven was at the beginning. But that's not who she was by the end of the series. And so it really made no sense for her to go Ramboing back into the place. Like, if that's what she did at the beginning, I would have accepted that. But for her to go from, oh, okay, I'm going to let you live, to, nah, never mind, I'm going to go kill everyone, it made no sense.
Even in the example you mentioned, she wasn't out for revenge necessarily. She's being very pragmatic, and the Hirogen were about to attack Voyager.
Yeah.
In this case, in Picard, it was purely revenge. Like, nobody was in danger. She wasn't like saving anybody. It was just to satisfy her own desire for revenge.
Yeah, which, I mean, I can accept she wanted revenge for Ichab. It's just, it made no sense to have Picard talk her down just for her to go right back. Like, that's just wasting everything.
Mm-hmm.
And Thomas and Mr. Miles are both saying that she didn't become queen. She only became a demi-queen. All right. I'll grant you that. But, like, the moral conundrum still was there. Like, she became a pseudo-queen. She got close. And having to give that up should have been something that they focused more on, instead of just, oh, I'm this demi-queen. Oh, all my Borg got thrown into space and I'm screaming no. Oh, I gave it up. We're cool. It's like, what? Well, what do you mean? How does any of this make sense? Professor Brainy Specs, yes, species 849021072. I think that holds up. Oh gosh. She did.
Anyway, we were talking about.
Oh yeah, go on.
Anyway, we were doing a SeaQuest episode at one point.
It's true. It's true. But I'm like a dog seeing a squirrel, just so easily distractible.
It's true.
So yeah, were there any things in the episode that you overtly didn't like?
Not particularly, no. I mean, the premise is ridiculous, but once you've accepted the premise, I mean, I was able to enjoy it for what it was.
You know, the only thing I actively disliked was the fact that the plant screamed nonstop throughout every time you saw it every time you saw it, it would be like roaring and growling. And when it was dying, you literally hear it's like someone had to do the sound effect where it's like gurgling, dying. I just imagine the guy having to do this sound effect, which was hilarious. I mean, that part cracked me up. But the roaring it did every time, like that got on my nerves. But that's more of a nitpick. Like if they had chosen not to do that sound, I think I would have enjoyed the episode more, but I mean, like I said, it's a nitpick. And really that's all I had in terms of things I didn't like. The being able to go through the vent and get to a different section, which I might be wrong about that nitpick. It might be that the moon bay was in the same section as the plant already.
It could be, I don't know.
Yes, Thomas. Don't get me on Wiccans. That's right, Thomas.
Yes, I remember when I watched this episode as a kid, it absolutely terrified me. And now I think it's hilarious.
I can see that. I can absolutely see. You know, it really did have at several points I joke about Little Shop of Horrors, but that's just because of the one scene where the guy gets eaten. And the idea of carnivorous plant in the first point. But it really did have more of a Jurassic Park feel, where you go into this enclosed area, you're stuck there, you're being chased by things, you're trying to hide behind doors, it breaks in. It very much was this. Oh, and of course, everything was genetically modified or genetically engineered. So, young Matthew easily would have been scared by Jurassic Park if I had bothered to watch it when I was young. But I don't think I watched it till I was like 17 or 18. And by then it was more fascinating and less scary. Thomas is saying I'll have plenty of time talking about Wiccans in a few Fridays. Interesting. I'm not sure which movie that's going to be. Is that the Shroom one?
It could be. I don't know.
Fungicide. Gosh, Fungicide. I don't know where Michael will find these things. Well, John, you got any final thoughts for this week's episode?
Just that it's, example number like 27 of Darwin saving the day. We talked about he really had the long game this time.
He did.
What has he done?
And very appropriately, Life with Matthew getting the "What has he done?" quote from Pride and Prejudice, saying Darwin was brilliant and amazing. He was somehow, as always. Like I literally got to that point in the episode, I went, "Oh my goodness, Darwin has saved the day." Like, I know that's not what they meant. They meant for it just be one of these coincidences that you do in sci-fi all the time. Your B plot has something going on. It turns out that the random something in the B plot is what is integral to saving everyone in the A plot. But just the fact that it ended up being Darwin, I'm like, no, my headcanon is Darwin looked at the future and orchestrated everything to make sure they were safe. Which I think makes for a better episode. I mean, if I'm going to accept carnivorous roaring plants, why not Darwin pulling off the long game?
And by the way, I can see you, Professor. I just think Matthew's ignoring his sensors.
I might be. Not on purpose, though. Just because I'm, as we all know, a bad host. And Thomas saying no, it's not the fungicide. There's plans that are in motions that will really drive me crazy. Okay.
Even more than usual.
Let's see. Would you count Hocus Pocus as a really terrible movie? I probably would.
I never saw it.
Oh, it was not great. It might have been one of those direct-to-TV Disney movies, but it was Halloween night. Guy brings 3 witches back from the dead by complete accident, and Hocus Pocus ensues. And then there was another one, something like Death Becomes Her or something. Some lady makes herself immortal. It turns out that just because you're immortal, it doesn't mean your body's invulnerable. So like she's constantly having to duct tape pieces of her body back on because some accidents happen. Which I thought that movie was pretty terrible. But I've seen both of those, so they can't be those, because Anti-Trigger's only going to show me movies I haven't seen. I need to install a Babcom? Babcom? What's a Babcom?
I don't know what a Babcom is. Or if it's a Babylon 5 reference, maybe? I don't know.
Let's see, Babcom is a non-profit organization that is driven by a single goal: to do our part in helping youth understand and learn about code. I don't think that's what you're talking about, though.
Doesn't sound like it.
Babcom was Babylon 5's internal communication network. Yes, that is much more likely what we're talking about. Well, guys, as always, thank you so much for hanging out with us. And John, thank you especially for hanging out with me for another SeaQuest week. We will be back, as always, next week at 9:30, and I look forward to having you here.
Good night.
Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends. If you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you will, and be sure to hit that bell icon to be notified of all the updates I do on this channel. If you want to support the work I'm doing here, then I hope you'll consider becoming one of my Patreons, where you'll get early access to all kinds of videos. And until the next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.